and welcome to this episode. There are many examples of vanitas throughout classic painting, or classic art, often being still lifes that contain skulls, hourglasses, smoke, or rotten fruit, etc. Vanitas symbolize the vanity, emptiness, and shortness of life. And this particular style, or art style, was very common in Netherlands art in the 16th and 17th centuries. And today we have gathered some of the Galerie skull paintings for this episode. One good example is By Your Side, which has been sold and unfortunately is not with us today. It looks a lot like a reaper. But is in fact the remnants of a Capuchin monk from the 17th century, painted in photorealism by Mankan in 2018. So today we're going through this massive iron gate over here. And into this beautiful courtyard. But for this episode, we're not staying in the courtyard. We're going down into the vaults. And here we have them. These are studies by Isabella Aline. She usually does quite a few studies before tattooing people because she's also a tattoo artist. So she studies the motif first and then does the tattoo. This one is also a painting by her. It's an oil painting from 2016 and it's called Cliff. I guess you could say it looks like a cliff by the way it is shaped. I guess it could be a cliff from another world, maybe. I think there's a lot of imagination behind it and it can be seen in several different ways depending on the person who looks at it. This one is also by Isabella Aline. It's a watercolor called Thunder. And this one, Polly Pepper, this big one here, is by Ida Lindberg. And usually what she does is that she does quite colorful motifs, very playful, cartoony. So this time she wanted to do something different and work in a more realistic way with only one color. You can see all the different hues of purples, almost blue sometimes, a little gray. And she kept to her true self with the cutesy things and added a bow to the skull to give it her personal touch. This one, Calidum et Frigus, is by Frida Johansson Coppola, and it's a watercolor. Calidum et Frigus is Latin for warm and cold, and when you look at the painting, you can really see why it's called that. This one was done alla prima, which really is an oil painter's term, meaning it was completed in one session only. And this one, Vasa Preciosa, is by Maja Lund. The flowers are lilies, which are commonly used at funerals. The skull itself is damaged as to serve as a pretty vase, or vasa preciosa in Latin. So they went well together. And then we have Red Sea, which is also a watercolor. And here we have the stripe series. There is blue stripe, green stripe, red stripe, and yellow stripe. These were painted by Mankan in 2017, and he actually constructed an extra wide brush to create the stripes. Two of these have been sold. Blue stripe and red stripe were sold at a charity auction, but we have managed to borrow them to have them here today for the exhibition. Over here is a very special watercolor called Waldorf. It is part of a series of 15 different watercolors, which was made during 2015. This one is special because the artist Mankan, he actually sold it off, but then a few years later he regretted and went after the buyer and bought it back. It has been reframed and is actually for sale, but only for a substantial amount of money, due to the fact Mankan sees it as maybe the best one he's done so far. And over here we have the Confixa series, number 1, 2, and 3 by Maya Lund, painted this year. And this series is about exploring her own confidence when it comes to painting like this. She explores a lot with the palette knife. But as you can see in the beginning, the first one, she's very subtle with it. She doesn't feel like she has control maybe, or she wants to explore a little bit. So it's very subtle over here a little, over here in the background. In the second one, you can see that she becomes already more confident with how to use it. She has some idea of what to do already now. It's really cool. And the third one, I mean, it speaks for itself. She knows what she's doing now. And it's this journey through her confidence and painting and exploring her own self. And I think that's a really cool series. And over here, we have a very special painting by Isabella Aline. And the reason it's special is because it won first place in a major online competition with around 1,000 competitors. And she won first place with this painting. This is not the original painting that we have here, it's a reproduction. It's a Chiclet fine art print on canvas, which has been retouched with oil colors by the artist herself to meet her demands, a so-called artist proof. And the prize for winning this online competition was getting a piece of art by the man who held the competition, which is an American artist called Jeff Gogwe. And since she won first place, she got a piece of art by him, original, and here we have it. This one is a very special one because it got finished before it was done. So the plan was for it to be an oil painting by the artist Mankan. But once he started sketching out with pencil and the diluted acrylic, he took a step back to look at it, and it was finished as almost if the painting had its own will to be finished. And it's called submerged because it does kind of look like it's underwater. And here, if you look closely, you can still see the pencil lines through the color. And it was painted a little over 6 years ago. And over here, we have a watercolor by Isabella Aline, which does not have a name yet, but it has a nice mix with life and death. And under here, we have Uncas, which is the very last one from the 2015 watercolor series by Manka. And it's the only original, apart from Waldorf, that we have here in the gallery. Which leads us to this one, called Sniper 2, which is based on Sniper from the same 2015 watercolor series. And here we have Nubis Griseo, which is a painting, a watercolor by Frida Johansson Kåpala. And the point of this was to do it fast, in one session, and big. The point of it being fast was that she wanted to do it subconsciously, by instinct, to see how your mind may work better if the conscious isn't in the way. And over here we have Avem, which means bird or omen in Latin. And it's a watercolor by Frida Johansson Kåpala. And the reason for the dead bird is because when she was walking outside, she saw a lot of dead birds on the floor, and I guess it kind of crept into her subconscious, which she had to put down on paper to get it out. And I guess you could say that the bird is laying on top of the skull, a bit like an omen. Moving on, we have Isabella Aline's another study of hers, and Pepperjack. which is also part of the 2015 watercolor series by Manca. And the reason for the name is that it actually got peppered by oil paint from a nearby oil painter when it was being produced. It is about a quarter of the size of the original and is the last remaining reproduction. And here we have Old Man in the Shed, which is an oil painting by Isabella Allin, and is framed by an old window. So I guess she saw the window, got attached to it, took it home, dismantled it, and then remantled it to fit this oil painting. And moving on to Snow, watercolor by Isabella Allin, done in 2015. This one has a very cold feeling to it with all the blues. It almost feels cold to the touch. And over here we have another study by Isabella Allin, done in 2015. Here we have two watercolors, this one being a study by Isabella Allin, done in 2015, and this one over here, called Sacre Nubis, which means blue cloud in Latin, is by Frida Johansson Coppola, and she painted it while she was on a night train. And it was finished upon arrival. Moving on, here we have another study by Isabella Allin from 2015 in oil. And this one I like very much because of the amount of detail it has and how the colors play with each other. It's very warm here in the center, as almost as it sticks out, but becomes very cold in the surrounding areas. Back here, we have another study, also by Isabella Allin. Another one that I like very much because of the amount of detail, but instead of being warm, this one is very cold. The only warmth here is around the eye. We have our last two paintings of the exhibition, both watercolors by Maja Lund. This one on top is called Stationarius, which means stationary, it cannot be moved. And this one is interesting because, as you can see, it's missing a cheekbone, which makes you wonder what happened to this person, or yeah, what happened to them? It just adds to the overall sadness of what a skull already represents, which is the vanity of life. And this is it for us, basically. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you next time.